Hi, welcome to Miss Richardson's U.S. History 5-Minute Lectures. This information is U.S. Notes 5.7, the Women's Movement. It includes information that goes along with the first section on your unit study guide. Now remember, you have control over this lecture. Pause when you need to, use your study guide to figure out what to write down, and rewatch if you have to. So let's go ahead and get started. Throughout the 60s and the 70s, many women watched the African American civil rights movement change America. Many of those involved were women, both African American and white. As they watched blacks gain more equality and better treatment, many women in America felt that it was now time to change the way they were treated as well. So this movement didn't just spring up because the African Americans were fighting for equality. It, much like the African American civil rights movement, had years of history and earlier actions to build upon. We even talked about some of these last semester, and even this semester. For example, in 1920, the 19th Amendment was passed, giving women the right to vote. In the 20s, many women, including flappers, experienced this newfound liberation and freedom. The way they dressed changed, they spoke more openly, they acted differently, and their role in society began to change. Then from 1940 to 45, women took jobs in manufacturing to support the war efforts. They basically did these men's jobs in order to raise the level of production needed to win World War II. So these advances took a step back then in the 50s as men returned from the war and women were expected to stay at home. The idea of conformity increased the pressure to support their husband and raise their families in very traditional ways in the U.S. So, after tasting equality, many women were unhappy with this status quo, and soon the feminist movement began to take shape. When I talk about feminism and the feminist movement, some people see this as a bad word. They don't want to be feminists. But really, feminism is the theory or the idea of political, social, and economic equality between men and women. In other words, treating women and men equally. So, not really such a bad thing, right? And a feminist is just a person, male or female, who supports the idea of equality between the two groups. So, yes, I would say I was a feminist. So where did feminism really take off? Well, in 1963, a woman named Betty Friedan wrote a book titled The Feminine Mystique. This book revealed that many women were not happy staying at home and they wanted careers. Prior to this, women had conformed and not complained, but now that they realized others felt the same way, they began to push for change. So the book is credited, and therefore Friedan is credited, with the start of the women's movement. As more and more women agreed with the feelings uncovered in Friedan's book, there grew a demand for women to organize. The National Organization for Women, or NOW, was created in 1966. 28 professional women, which included Betty Friedan, formed this group to support women as they fought for equal treatment and opportunities. NOW's aim still continues today, and is to end sexual discrimination in education, work, politics, religion, and any other social institution. They've succeeded at the state level in passing a lot of equal pay for equal work laws, and in the use of affirmative action to force schools to create girls' programs and girls' sports and things like that, and to force employers to hire more women. At the national level, they promoted the ERA, or the Equal Rights Amendment. This proposed amendment was actually written by Alice Paul way back in 1923, was actually passed by Congress in 1972, but amendments need ratified by 38 states in order to pass. They needed that by 1982. 35 states ratified the ERA, but the other 3 did not, so it never actually became an amendment. While not all treatment of women is equal today, socially there still are differences in treatment of males and females, and pay is still different even today. But the women's movement was successful in gaining women more opportunities throughout the U.S. So that was important. And this is the end of your U.S. Notes 5.7. Hopefully you learned something. And if you have questions, make sure you bring those to class.